Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Part 1. When the siege and the assault had ceased at Troy, and the fortress fell in flames to logs and ashes, there was a Trojan who the charge of treason was used on, and was tried for his treachery. Though he was truest on earth, it is Aeneas, the noble, and his renowned brother, who then took over lands and became lords of nearly all the wealth in the Western Isles. Then royal Romulus took a road to Rome. With great pomp and pride, he populated it first and named it with his own name, which it still bears. Tyrrhius went to Tuscany and founded towns. Langobard in Lombardy laid out halls, and far over the French sea, Felix Brutus, on many a broad bank and bay, settled Britain so far and strange. For strife in sadness had given this land its share, and both great grief and gladness often are found there. And when fair Britain was founded by this famous lord, bold men were bred there who enjoyed to battle, and many times these men aroused much mischief. In this domain more marvels have been seen by men than any other that I know of since those olden days. But of all the kings who had commanded Britain, Arthur was most honored, as I have heard men say. Therefore, a marvel among men I shall recall, a sight strange to see some men have said, one of the wildest adventures of the wonders of Arthur. If you will listen to these words but a little while now, I will tell it. At once is in town, I have heard it told, as written in binding treasured, in stories brave and bold, cursive linked and lettered, as loved in lands of old. This king sat at Camelot at Christmas time, with many lovely lords, lieges most noble. Indeed, at the round table, all those trusted brothers sat amid merriment, unmatched, and laughter without care. There the trusty knights held tournaments and jousted so joyously as gentlemen. Then to the court they came to sing Christmas carols. There the feast continued for 15 days, with all meats and all merriment that men could devise. Such gladness and good fun as was glorious to hear. People talking by day and dancing by night. All happiness at the highest of halls. And in the rooms there were the lords and the ladies, who they loved most dearly. With all the bliss of this world they were together, the knights most well known, second only to Christ, and the loveliest ladies who ever enjoyed life, and he, the most courteous king who that court ever had. For all these fair folk still in their youth reside, 'neath heaven in first in fame. Their king most high in pride, and it would be hard to name knights better exemplified. While New Year was yet young and barely arrived, that day double delicacies on the days were served. After the king had come with his courtiers, and the choirs chanting in the chapel had ended, With loud clamor and cries, both clerics and laymen greeted each other with Noel, repeating it often. Then nobles ran up soon with New Year's gifts. The gifts, they shouted, and gave them out, competing for those presents in playful guessing games, ladies laughing loudly, though they lost the game, and the winner was not sad, as you may well have guessed. All this merriment they made till their meat was served. Then they washed and, in orderly fashion, went to their seats. Always the highest seat for the worthiest and noblest of guests. Queen Guinevere sat happily with the grace in the midst of the adorned days. Dashing was the display. Finest silk at her sides, a ceiling above her of true fabric of Toulouse, and tapestries of Targia that were embroidered and bound with the brightest gems one might find, appraise and purchase for coin one day. That loveliest lady there who glanced with eyes of grey, that there was one more fair, in truth no man could say. But Arthur would not eat until all were served. His youth made him so merry with the moods of a boy. He liked light-hearted life, and he loved less either long to be lying or long to be seated. Thus, his young blood and brain did their work on him. And another reason, moreover, was a rule that in pride he had made. He preferred not to eat at a festival so fair before he was first told of some strange story or stirring adventure, or some moving marvel that he might believe in of noble men, knighthood, or new adventures. Or a challenger should seek a champion to join him in jousting, putting himself in jeopardy, setting life against life, each yielding to the other if fortune favors him over the other. This was the king's custom, wherever his court was held. At each famous feast, among his fair company in that hall, his face so proudly appears, he stands up strong and tall, a youth in the new year, enjoying with it all. Thus the stern king himself stands up straight and talks to the high table of courtly matters. There good Gawain sat at Guinevere's side, with Gawain à la Durmain on the other side seated, both their lord's nephews and his loyal knights. Bishop Baldwin sat at the head of the table, and Iwain Urien's son ate beside him. These were seated on the dais, all ready to eat, while many a loyal lord below sat at the long tables. Then came forth the first course with a fanfare of trumpets, on which many bright banners boldly were hanging. The noise of the drums came, and the noble pipes, whistling wild and sharp, wakening them with music, so that many hearts rose high hearing their playing. Then a feast was brought forth, the finest of food, multitudes of fresh meats on so many dishes that there were few free places in front of the people to set the silver bowls full of soups on cloth so white. Each lord to his liking there took food with full delight. 12 plates to every pair, the wine was glistening bright. Now of their meal I will say nothing more, for you are all aware that no one went hungry there. Another noise that was new drew near all of a sudden, so that their lord might be allowed at last to eat food. For hardly had the music but a moment ended, and the first course in the court, as was custom, been served. When there passed through the portals a perilous horseman, the mightiest on earth in measure of height, from his throat to his stomach, so great and so square, and his loins and his limbs so long and so huge, that a half giant still on this earth, I believe that he was. But the largest man alive, at least I will call him, and yet the hugest for his size, that could sit on a horse. For though in back and in chest his body was broad, both his stomach and his waist were properly slim, and all his facial features fit in the same fashion as he rode. The men all gaped aghast at the face and form that showed this creature striding past, green all over glowed. Both garments and the guy were green all over. His coat was tight, so close it clung to his sides. A rich robe on top was all arranged, and within was fur finely trimmed, showing fair fringes of handsome ermine, as was his hood as well, that was lifted from his long hair and laid on his shoulders, and trim pants, tight drawn of tint alike, that clung to his calves, and clear spurs below of glimmering gold on silk that was striped most richly, though unshod were his shins, for shoeless he rode. And truly all this clothing was of virtue but in color, was of verdure in color, sorry. Both the bars on his belt and the shining stones next to them, that were richly arranged in the outfit he wore, set on himself and on his saddle upon silk fabrics. It would be too hard to recall one half of the trifles that were embroidered on them, what with birds and butterflies in a glad glory of green, and always within gold. The pennants of his horse's breastplate, and the saddle, and all the metal, and more on the horse, were enameled. Even the stirrups that he stood in were colored the same, and his saddle bows the same, and their sumptuous skirts, which always glimmered and gleamed, all with green jewels. Even the horse that upheld him in hue was the same, I tell you. A green horse, great and thick, a stallion stronger than you, that wore a bridle slick, and matched his master, too. Very happy was this great man, matching all in green, and the hair on his head looked like his horse's hair, fair flapping locks and shrouding his shoulders, a big beard like a bush over his chest, hanging along with the handsome hair from his head, falling to a sharp edge just short of his elbows, so that half his arms under it were lit, as it is in a king's headpiece that encloses the neck. The hair of that mighty horse was of much the same sort, well curled and all combed, with many curious knots woven in with gold wire around the wondrous green, always a strand of the hair and a string of the gold. The tail and the top lock were twined all to match and both bound with a band of a brilliant green, with precious jewels adorning the tail's ending. And twisted then on top was a tight knotted knot, on which many polished bells of bright gold jingled. Such a horse on the earth or man to ride him was never beheld with the eyes that hall before that time, for there his glance was sharp as lightning, all those that saw did swear. A man would find it frightening, such heavy armor to bear. And yet he had not a helmet, nor a hauberk either. Not an upper breastplate, not a proper plate for his arms, not a shield, not an arrow's shaft for attack or defense. But in one hand he held a branch of holly, that is greatest in greenery when groves are leafless, and an axe in the other, ugly and monstrous, a ruthless weapon, all right for one to describe. The head was as large and as long as half a yard. The spike at the top was of green steel and gold. The blade was polished bright and broad at the edge, as well shaped for slicing as sharp razors. The stem was a strong staff by which he sternly gripped, all bound with iron around down to the base of the handle, and engraved in green in graceful patterns, lapped around with a lanyard that was lashed to the head and down to the length of the handle was looped many times, and tassels of high price were tied there aplenty to studs of the bright green, braided most richly. That was his appearance as he hastened it, entering the hall, pressing forward to the dais, fearing no danger. He gave greetings to no one, gazing above them, and the first word, "Now where is," he said, "the governor of this gathering? For gladly I would set my sight on the sir, and have talk with him in this town." On the courtiers he cast his eye, and rolled it up and down. He tried to find the guy who had the most renown. Then they looked for a while on the lord gazing, for every man marveled, and thought, what could it mean that horseman and horse such a color should come, as if green grown from the ground, and greener it seemed that green enamel on gold, glowing far brighter. All stared that stood there, and came up nearer, watching him and wondering what in the world he would do. For many marvels they had seen, but none to match this. Thus folks there thought it was a phantom with fairy magic. And so all those knights there weren't eager to answer, and astounded at his stern voice stone still, they sat there in a stupefied silence through that solemn setting, as if all had drifted into a dream, so died their voices away. I think it wasn't all dread, for 'twas their courteous way to allow their lord and head to be first to have a say. Then Arthur on the high days beheld this wonder, and freely with his words, for he was always fearless, saluted him, saying, Lord, to this lodging you're welcome. The head of this household, Arthur is my name. Dismount if you respect me, and please stay a while. And what you may wish for in a while we shall learn. Nay, so help me he that sits on high, said the horseman. To spend any time in this place was not my purpose. But since your praises, Prince, so proudly are pronounced, and your castles and courtiers are called the best, the strongest in steel that on steeds may ride, most eager and honorable of the earth's people, valiant when vying in virtuous sports, and here is knighthood renowned, as has entered my ears. That's what brought me here, by my faith, at this time. You may believe by this branch that I am bearing here that I am present as one in peace, seeking no peril. For had I set forth to fight in the form of war, I'd have a hauberk at your home, and a helmet also, a shield, and a sharp spear shining splendidly, and other weapons to wield as well, I think. But since I crave for no combat, my clothes are softer. Yet, if you be so bold, as it is all said all around the land, you will grant out of your goodness the game that I ask for by right. Then Arthur answered there, and said, Sir noble knight, if of battle you seek a share, here you'll find a fight. Nay, I wish for no warfare, on my word I tell you. Sitting around on those benches are but beardless children. Were I dressed in armor on a high horse, there is no man here to match me. Their might is so feeble. And so I crave in this court only a Christmas game, since it's the holidays, and you here are young and merry. If any in this house here holds that he is brave, if so bold be his blood or his brains be so wild, that he sternly dares to trade one strike for one strike, then I will give him as my gift this costly weapon, this axe. It's heavy enough to handle as he pleases, and I'll bear the first strike, here bearing my neck as I kneel. If any fellow be so fierce as to try it, let him hasten to me and take hold of this weapon. I hand it over, and he can have it his own. And I will take a hit from him, stone still on this floor, provided you agree to this pact. That I may give a hit to him, so says I. Yet a rest I will allow, till a year and a day go by. Come quick, and let's see now if any dare reply. If he astounded them at first, yet still now more astounded were all the household in the hall, both high men and low. The man on his mount moved in his saddle, and rudely he rolled his red eyes around, bent his bristling eyebrows all brilliantly green, and swept around his bearded head to see who would rise. When none would talk to him, he hacked his throat loudly, stretched his arms out arrogantly, and clearly exclaimed, What? "Is this Arthur's house?" he hollered, "the renown of which runs through countless countries. Where now is your haughtiness, and your high conquests, your fierceness, and your fine boasting? Now are the revels and the royalty of the Round Table overwhelmed by a word whispered by one man, for all turn white in fear when I said you can hit me first." With that, he laughed so loud that their lord was angered. The blood shone for shame in his cheeks and face, and ranged as wind he grew. So all did in that place. Then near to the strong man drew the king with fearless pace, and said, "My good man, you ask for madness, and since foolishness you seek, you deserve to find it. I know no lord that is alarmed by your loud words here. Give me now your axe in God's name, sir, and I will bring you the blessing you are begging for." Quick, then, he came to him and took it from his hand. Then the large man lumbered off his horse onto foot. Now Arthur holds his axe, and the handle grasping tightly. He stirs it around, considering his swing. The strong man in front of him stood his full height, higher than any in that house by a head or more. He stood there with a stern face as he stroked his beard, and with an expression unmoved, he pulled off his coat, no more distressed at the strength of Arthur's swings than if he were relaxing and someone served him a drink of wine. From beside the queen Gawain to the king spoke out this line: "I ask with question plain, could this match instead be mine?" "Would you, my worthy lord," said Gawain to the king, "let me leave this seat and stand by you there, so that I, without discourtesy, might be excused from the table? And were my lord's lady willing to permit me, I would come to your side by your courtiers, for I find it unfitting, as in fact it is held, when a challenge in your chamber is made for you to accept, though you yourself would like to accept it, while many bold men around you are seated. On earth they are, I hold, no more honest, none fairer on the fields of fighting than them. I am the weakest, I am aware, and in wit feeblest, and would be least loss if I don't live, to tell you the truth. Only because you are my uncle is this honor given to me. Other than your blood in my body, I have no virtue. And since this affair is so foolish that it in no way befits you, and I have requested it first, granted then to me. If my claim is uncalled for, let it be judged by all of you, this court. To consult the knights draw near. This plan they all support. The king from danger cleared, by giving Gawain the sport. The king then commanded that he quickly should rise, and he readily rose and directly approached. Kneeling humbly to his highness and putting his hand on the axe. And the king kindly relinquished it, and lifting his hand, gave him God's blessing, and graciously told him that his hand and his heart should both be brave. "Take care, nephew," said the king. "One cut to settle it. And if you teach him his lesson as well, If you teach him his lesson well, I believe that you will bear any blow that he gives back later. Gawain goes to the great man with axe in hand, and he boldly waits there, not turning white at all. Then next, the knight all in green said to Gawain, "Let's repeat our agreement before we go any further. Tell me first, Sir Knight, your name. I request you to tell me truly, that I may trust you in your word." "In good faith," said the good knight. "I am called Gawain, who brings you this blow, whatever may follow. And at this time, in 12 months, it's your turn to have a blow with whatever weapon you wish. And in all the world, that at no one else but me." The other man spoke again. "I am quite pleased, it's true. Upon my life, Sir Gawain, that I'll be hit by you." "Indeed," continued the Green Knight, "Sir Gawain, I am pleased to find from your fist the favor I asked for. And you have promptly repeated and plainly have stated, without error, the bargain I begged of the king here. Except that you must assure me, sir, on your honor, that you'll seek me yourself. Search where you think I may be found, near or far, and fetch me for payment, just as you deliver to me today before these noble people." "Where can I find you?" asked Gawain, "or look for your home? I have never learned where you live. By the Lord that made me, I know you not, knight. Your name, not your court. But tell me truly the way, and tell me what men call you, and I will make my whole purpose to find the path. And that I swear to you with certain and solemn promise." "That is enough in the new year. There is need of no more," said the great man in green to Gawain the courteous. "I will tell you the truth of it, after I have received your swing. And you handily have hit me, then in haste I'll announce my house, and my home, and my title. Then you can call and inquire and keep the agreement. And if I whisper not a word, then you're all the more lucky, for you may linger in your land and look no further. Okay? Of your grim tool take heed, sir. Let's see your swing today." "Gladly," said he. "Indeed, sir." And the axe now made its way. The Green Knight, on the ground, now gets himself ready, leaning his head a little forward as he lays bare the flesh. And his long and lovely locks of hair he lifts over his head, letting the naked neck, as was needed, appear. He placed his left foot in front of him on the floor. Gawain gripped on his axe, gathered, and raised it. And from aloft, let it swiftly land where there was skin, so that the edge of his blade separated the bones and sank clean through the flesh and cut it in two. The blade of the bright steel then biting to the ground. The fine head fell from the shoulders to the floor, and people kicked it with their feet as around it went rolling. The blood burst from the body, bright on the greenness. And yet the fierce man neither faltered at all nor fell. But strongly he strode forth, still strong on his legs, and roughly he reached out among the rows that stood there, picked up his handsome head, and quickly raised it, and then hastened to his horse, laid hold of the bridle, stepped into stirrup iron, and swung himself up, his hand holding his head by the hair. And he settled himself in the saddle as firmly as if unharmed, though, as all in the hall could see, he had no head. His trunk he twisted round, that gruesome body that bled, and gasps of fear resound once they heard what he said. He held straight up the head in his hand. Towards the noblest at the table, he twisted his face, and it lifted up its eyelids and looked at them all, and made words with its mouth that they could understand. Get ready, Gawain, to go as you vowed, and faithfully seek until you find me, good sir. As you have promised in this place, in the presence of these knights. 450 to the Green Chapel. Go. And get there, I command you, such a hit as you have dealt. Indeed, you have earned a swift swing, in return on New Year's morning. As the Knight of the Green Chapel, I am known by many. So if you endeavor to find me, you will not fail. Therefore come, or you deserve to be called a coward. With a rude roar, he rushed to pull his reins, and hastened out through the hall door, with his head in his hand, and his horse's iron-shod hooves created sparks as he sped away. To what country he went to from court, no man knew, no more than they'd learned from what land he journeyed from. Meanwhile, the king and Sir Gawain at the Green Man laugh and smile. To all men it seemed plain, a marvel beyond denial. Though Arthur, the High King, and in his heart marveled, he let no sign of it be seen, but said then aloud to the Queen, so kindly with courteous words, Dear lady, today be not downcast at all. Such cunning games will suit the Christmas season, performances and the like, and laughter and singing. Amid these noble dances of knights and of dames, moreover, now I may enjoy my meal. For a marvel I have met, and I cannot deny it. He glanced at Sir Gawain, and with good humor, he said, Come, hang up your axe, sir. It is hacked enough for now. And over the table, they hung it on the tapestry behind them, where all men might remark at it. A marvel to see, and as a true token, it could tell of that adventure. Then to a table they turned, those two lords together, the king and his good relatives, and men served them with all delicacies doubled, the most delicious there might be, with all manner of meats, and with more music too. With delight that day they spent, till to the land came the night again. Sir Gawain, don't relax. If fear becomes too deep, it may divert your tracks from the vow that you must keep. I will take a quick break before part two. Part two. Excuse me. Part two. With this high adventure, Arthur thus began the young year, and for more brave vows he yearned. Though such words were nowhere when they went to feast, and now fierce hard work filled their hands. Gawain was glad when he began those games in the hall. But if he was unhappy when it was over, then it's no wonder. For though men be merry when they have mightily drunk, a year slips by swiftly, never again returning. The feelings at the outset and the ending are seldom in sync. And so this Christmas season passed, and the year came after, and several seasons ensued, each taking its turn. After Christmas, there came the sullen Lent that tests the flesh with fish and food more meager. But then the weather in the world makes war on the winter. Cold creeps back into the earth, clouds are uplifted, shining rain is shed in showers that warm and fall on the fair fields. When flowers open on grounds and on groves, the earth's clothing is green. Birds are busy building and boldly are singing. And for the sweetness of the soft summer, that will soon be on the way. And blossoms shimmer and show in bushes bright as day. Their colors, like melodies, flow through woods in grand display. After the season of summer, with its soft breezes, when zephyr goes sighing through seeds and herbs, so glad is the grass that grows in the open when the damp dewdrops are dripping from the leaves to greet a glowing glance of the glistening sun. And when harvest hurries in, he hardens the ground quickly, warning it to reach ripeness before winter comes. He drives the dust with his drought till the dust rises from the face of the land and flies up aloft. Wild wind in the sky makes war on the sun, the leaves loosened with the from the linden trees landing on the ground. And Grass that was green before all turns gray. All things ripen and rot that rose up at first. And so the year runs away in yesterdays. And here winter comes again, as in the ways of the world it ought, until the Michaelmas moon, as winter's brooding brought. Sir Gawain then too soon of his grim journey thought. And yet, till All Hallows, with Arthur he lingered, who on that festival gave a feast for the night, from much royal revelry at the Round Table. The knights of renown and noble ladies who loved that lord were all hurting at heart. But nevertheless, with light laughter they spoke. Many were joyless who jested for his own sake. For after their meal, he mournfully reminded his uncle that his departure was near, and plainly he said, "Now, my liege, for permission to leave I beg you. You know the quest and the pact. I don't care to trouble you with telling it again, except a trifling point. I must set forth to my fate without fail in the morning, as God will guide me to seek the Green Man." For those most respected in the castle then came together, Iwain and Eric, and others, not a few. Sir Dardinel le Savage, and the Duke of Clarence, Lancelot and Lionel, and Lucan the Good, Sir Bors and Sir Bedivere, who were both men of might, and many others of worth, with Mador de la Porte. All this company of the court the king now approached to comfort the knight with the care in their hearts. Many mournful words were said in the hall, that one so worthy as Gawain should commence that quest, to endure a brutal swing, but not swing back with his own blade. The knight made joyful cheer, said, "Why are you dismayed? By the fair, or what we fear, a man's refined this way." He remained there that day, and in the morning got ready, asked early for his weapons, and all were brought to him. First, a carpet of red silk was spread on the floor, and then plenty of gilded gear there glittered upon it. The stern man stepped on it and handled the steel, dressed in a jacket of damask from Targia, and over it a crafted headpiece that was closed at the throat, and with fair fur, ermine, all was lined. Then foot armor, first he set on his feet, his legs surrounded in steel, and his shins, then the knee armor they placed, polished and shining, and knit upon his knees with knots of gold. Then the handsome thigh armor that craftily clasped the thick muscles of his thighs, they tied on him with straps. And next the chainmail shirt woven of bright steel rings, upon costly quilting enclosed around him, and armlets well polished upon both of his arms, with shining elbow pieces and gloves of plate metal, and all the good gear to guard him for whatever came on his ride. Coat armor richly made, gold spurs on heels and pride, strapped with his trusty blade, sink belt around his side. When he was covered in his armor, his harness was splendid. Each little latch or loop was all lit with gold. Thus harnessed he as he was, he heard now his mass that was offered and honored at the high altar. And then he came to the king and his court companions, and with honor he left the lords and ladies. And they kissed him, escorted him, and commended him to Christ. Now his horse Gringolet stood groomed and strapped with a saddle gleaming with many gold fringes, and all new for the occasion, and perfectly it fit him. His bridle was adorned with bars and striped with bright gold. This appareling included a horse's breastplate and skirts, backstrap, cloth, and saddle, all had style matching. All was displayed in red with rich gold studded, so that it glittered and glared with a gleaming ray of the sun. Then he took in his hand the helmet, and in haste kissed it. It was sturdily made and cushioned within. It sat high upon his head and was clasped at the back. And a light scarf was laid over the visor, all braided and bound with the brightest gems, with broad silken embroidery, with birds on the seams like parrots painted here preening, and there turtle doves and true love knots entwined as thickly as if many seamstresses had sewn it for 7 winters in town. A headband of high price was worn just like a crown, a diamond-covered device that was all polished brown. Then they brought him his shield, that was of brilliant red, with a pentacle depicted in pure golden color. By the strap he caught it and flung it over his neck. Quite well it went with the knight's appearance. And why the pentacle is proper to that prince so noble, I intend now to tell you, though it may delay my story. It is a symbol that Solomon, once upon a time, set as a token of virtue, as it properly is. For it is a figure that has 5 points, and each line overlaps and is linked with another. And in every direction, it is endless. And the English, I hear everywhere, call it by the name the endless knot. So it suits well that this knight. So it suits well this knight and his pristine arms. Brother faithful in 5 points, and 5 times in each point, Gawain has acknowledged his good as gold refined, devoid of every vice and with virtues adorned. So there. The Pentangle painted new, his shield and armor wear, as one of word most true, this knight of bearing fair. First, he was found faultless in his 5 senses, and next, in the 5 fingers. He never failed with, and firmly he held his faith in the 5 wounds that Christ received on the cross, as the creed tells us. And wherever the brave man went into battle, he sincerely reflected on this beyond all other things. That he always gained his courage from the 5 joys that heaven's courteous queen received from her child. For this reason, the knight had, in handsome design on the inner side of his shield, Mary's image painted. So when he cast his eyes on it, his courage never failed. The 5th 5 that was used, I find, by this knight was generosity and fellowship first before all, and chastity and courtesy, ever changeless and straight, and piety, surpassing all points. These perfect 5 he held to harder than any other man. Now this series of 5s, in truth, were stuck on this knight, and each was knit with the others, and had no ending, but was fixed at 5 points. They never failed, colliding at no point, nor breaking apart, not ending in any corner anywhere, as I comprehend it. Nowhere does it start and nowhere does it end. Therefore, on his shiny shield there was the shape of the knot, royally colored with red upon gold. This is the pure pentangle, as educated people have taught. Now Gawain, in brave display, to him his lance was brought. He said to them, "Good day," the last time, so he thought. He spurred his steed and sprang on his way, so fiercely that the flint sparks flashed out behind him. All who held him to be honorable were sighing in their hearts and agreeing in truth, one said to another, grieving for that good man. Before God, it's a shame that you, Lord, must be lost, who are in life so noble. To meet his fatal match among men, oh, it is hard. To behave with more caution would have suited one of sense, and that dear lord could have one day been a duke, illustrious leader of loyal men in this land as befits him. And that would have been better than to be butchered to death, beheaded by an elvish man for an arrogant boast. Who can recall any king that ever took such challenge when knights were at the court for their Christmas games. Many warm tears went out of their watery eyes when that lord was so beloved left the castle that day. No one at his home, but swiftly went his way into wilderness to roam, as the book I read does say. Now suited up he rode through Arthur's realm, Sir Gawain in God's care, and found this game was not fun. Often forlorn and alone he stayed a night, where he found no food to feed himself. He had no friend except his horse in the forest and hills, no man on his quest to converse with except God. Till soon he drew near to northern Wales. He keeps to the right of all the Isles of Anglesey, and rides over shallow water near the sea. And then over by Holyhead to high land again, in the wilderness of Wirral, there wandered few who respected either God or mortal with goodwill. And as he went on, he always asked all whom he met if they had heard any news of a knight who was green from anywhere around, or of the Green Chapel. And all said nay, and that never in their lives a single man had they seen of such a color as he. The knight took pathways strange by many a field and tree, and though the scene would change, the chapel he could never see. Many a cliff he climbed over in lands unknown, far away from his friends, without fellowship he rode. At every wading or water on the way that he passed, he found a foe who attacked him, except for a few. And so foul were they and fierce that he had to fight. So many marvels in the mountains he met in those lands that it would be tedious to tell you 1/10 of them. For a while he battles with dragons and with wolves also, a while with wood trolls that wandered in the rocks, and with bulls, and with bears, and with boars too at times, and with giants that hounded him from high cliffs. Had he not been stalwart and stern and steadfast in God, he undoubtedly would have died, for he faced danger often. Though fighting fatigued him, much the winter was worse. When the cold, clear water from the clouds spills out, freezing before it has fallen upon the faded earth, nearly slain by the sleet, he slept in iron armor. More than enough nights in the rigid rocks, where cascading from the mountains cold streams came and hung high all over his head in hard icicles. Thus, in peril and pain and his plight's hardship, till Christmas Eve, he crossed that country all alone and in need. The night paused on his ride, his words to Mary plead, in hopes she'd be his guide and to some lodging lead. By a mountain in the morning, merrily he was riding into the forest that was deep and fearsomely wild, and with high hills on each side and ancient woods beneath the huge old oaks by the hundred together. The hazel, the hawthorn were huddled and tangled with rough, ragged moss around them trailing, with many birds bleakly on the bare twigs sitting, that pitifully piped there because of pain from the cold. The good man on Gringolet goes now beneath them, though many marshes and mires, a man alone, troubled that he would appear a coward at the same time in the service of the sweet Lord, who on the same night was born to a human mother to conquer men's mourning. And therefore, sighing, he said, I beg you, O Lord, and Mary, who is the mildest and dearest mother, for some home where I might have the honor to hear the Mass or your matins tomorrow. This I humbly ask, and I promptly pray with Pater and Ave and Creed. In prayer he now did ride, lamenting his failing deed. He sought a blessing and cried, "O Christ, please give me speed!" He made the sign on himself 3 times, and then in the forest came to a castle within a moat. On a low mound above a lawn, under the branches of many tree trunks and surrounded by ditches, the castle was the most handsome a king ever had, placed pleasantly there with a park all around it. Within a wall of pointed spears set closely, that surrounding the trees for 2 miles or more. From the one side, Gawain gazed on the stronghold as it shimmered and shone through the oak trees. Then humbly removed his helmet, and with honor he asked Jesus and St. Julian, who are both generous, and who had courteously responded to his cries, "Now a good night's rest," said the knight. "I beg you." Then he goaded Grindelet with his gilded heels, and by good luck the horse chose a perfect path to brilliantly bring him to the bridge's end at last. The bridge was raised upright, the bolted gates none passed. The castle was walled up tight, and feared no windly blast. Then he stopped his steed on the water's bank where the deep moat angled around the place. The wall went partly into the deep water and up hard-hewn stone to the high cornice, fortified under the battlement and in the best fashion, and topped with turrets spread along the top with many graceful loopholes that made good lookouts. That knight had never seen a better built base for a lord. And inside the walls he beheld a hall, tall towers set in a pattern, and cone-shaped roofs with splendid spires joined neatly, so fine and long their capstones all cleverly crafted with skill. Many chalk-white chimneys he happened to see upon the roofs of towers all radiant white. So many a painted pinnacle were everywhere among the roof folds of the castle clustered so thickly that it all appeared to have been crafted out of paper. The gallant knight on his great horse thought it was good and looked from end to end where he could enter. To stay in that home while the holy day lasted would be a delight. He called, and then with speed a servant smiled bright, asked him what was his need, and greeted the traveling knight. "Good sir," said Gawain, "will you go with my message to the high lord of this house and ask for a place to pray?" "Yes, by Peter," said the servant, "and I promise indeed that you will, sir. Be welcome while you wish to stay here." Then quickly the man went and came back soon, bringing servants there to rightly receive the knight. They lowered down the great drawbridge and came forth, and on the cold earth on their knees in courtesy, knelt to welcome this traveler as courteously as they could. They took him through the gates and left them wide open. And he told them to rise as he rode over the bridge. Several servants then seized the saddle as he dismounted, and many strong men led his steed into a stable, while knights and squires soon descended, gladly guiding this guest into the hall. When he raised up his helmet, many ran there in haste to have it from his hand and to serve his highness. Both his blade and his outer cloth they helped to remove. Then he graciously greeted all those good men, and many were proud to approach him to honor that prince. They brought him, still in his armor, to the hall, where a fair blaze in the fireplace fiercely was burning. Then the lord of that land left his chamber and came with manners to meet the man on his floor. He said, "You are welcome as you wish to stay here. Treat all that is here as your own, to have at will while you stay." "Greatest of thanks," said Gawain. "To you may Christ repay." As men whose hearts were plain, they both embraced the day. Gawain gazed at the good man who had greeted him kindly, and he thought this lord of the castle looked bold and brave. His body was very large and slim in the prime of his life. His beard was broad and all beaver-hued. Stern, strong in his stance among stalwart legs, his face fierce as fire, and frank in his speech, and well, it suited him. In truth, as it seemed to the knight, he was a lord who could easily lead many loyal men. The lord took him to a chamber and ordered men at once to assign him a squire to serve and obey him, and there to wait on his words were many worthy men who brought him to a brightly lit room with splendid bedding. There were curtains of costly silk with clear golden hems and covers clearly crafted with quilts most lovely, of bright ermine above, embroidered on the sides, curtains running on ropes with red gold rings, carpets of costly damask that covered the walls, and the floor underfoot fairly matched them. There they removed his armor, speaking to him happily, while taking his chainmail armor and his bright armor plates. Men ran in with rich robes ready for him to change into, and they had chosen for him the best. As soon as he had one robe and had dressed in it, it fit him handsomely with a flowing skirt. Then truly to each man there he seemed a vision of spring in marvelous hues, bright and beautiful, was all his body beneath. A knight more noble was never made by Christ, they thought. He came but from where? It seemed his horse had brought a knight beyond compare from battles where fierce men fought. A chair by the chimney where charcoal was burning was made ready up in his room, all arranged and covered with cushions upon quilted cloths that were cleverly crafted. Then a handsome cloak was hung around him of bright silk brocade, richly embroidered and fairly filled inside with the finest of furs, and all edged with ermine, and its hood was matching, and he sat in that seat, seeming proper and noble, and warmed himself well, so his aches were alleviated. Soon up on long legs a table was raised and spread with a clean cloth that looked a pure white. There was a tablecloth, a salt shaker, and silver spoons. He then washed himself well and went at his food. And many worthy men in service waited upon him. Soups they served of many sorts, seasoned most savory, in double helpings, as was due, and a variety of fish, some baked in bread, some broiled on the coals, some seared, some in gravy with spices, and all with condiments so clever that it caused him delight. A fair feast, he called out, frankly and often, graciously, when all the good men together there said, "Now please, this meat, this food partake. Tomorrow it will cease." The laughter makes him shake as the wine increased. Then inquiry and questions were carefully put to Gawain himself, touching on personal points, till he courteously declared that he belonged to the court that high Arthur, in honor, held under his hand, who was the righteous royal king of the Round Table. And it was Gawain himself that, as their guest, now sat, and as it turned out, had come to visit for Christmas, where the Lord had learned whom luck had brought him. He loudly laughed, feeling such delight, and they celebrated very merrily. All the men in that castle pressing eagerly nearer to appear in his presence. For he was known as one of perfect mind and manners and powerful skill, and was always praised. Of all men on earth, he was most admired. Softly, each said then in secret to his friend, "Now closely we shall catch the fine points of his manners and perfect expressions of elegant conversation. How speeches well spent, will be expounded without our asking, since we have found here this father of fine breeding. God has given us some of his goodness and grace now, indeed. For such a guest as Gawain, he has granted us to have. These blissful men, in the season of his birth, sing carefree at heart. What high manners may mean this night will now impart. It shall be heard and seen what makes the love speech art. When his dinner was done and he duly had risen, it now had drawn very near to night time. The chaplains then made their way to the chapel and rang the bells resoundingly, as rightly they should, for the solemn evening prayers of the high season. The Lord leads the way, and his lady with him. Into the good chapel she gracefully enters. Gawain follows gladly, and goes there at once, and the Lord seizes him by the sleeve and leads him to his seat, kindly acknowledging him and calling him by his name, saying that he was most welcome of all the guests in the world. And he gratefully gave thanks as each greeted the other, and they sat together soberly while the prayer service lasted. Then the lady longed to look at this knight, and from her room she came with many pretty maidens. She was fairer in face, in her flesh and her skin, her proportions, complexion, and demeanor than all others, and to Gawain more lovely than Guinevere she looked. He came through the chapel to courteously bow to her. Another lady was there leading her by the left hand, who was older than she, indeed ancient she seemed, and held in high honor by all men around her. But those ladies appeared unlike in their looks, for if the younger was fair, the elder was foul. The one face was richly wearing a rose hue, the other wore rolls of rough, wrinkled cheeks. On the scarf of the one were many clear pearls. Her dress was low cut and left her bright throat bare, fairer than white snow that falls on the hills. The other was wearing a cloth that enclosed her whole neck. Her black chin was enveloped in chalk white veils, her forehead enfolded in skin and was so bunched up, so covered in trinkets and trifling accessories that nothing was bare of that lady but black eyebrows, her 2 eyes, and her nose, and her naked lips. And those were hideous to behold and horribly gray. That she was a worthy dame, it could well be said. Short body and thick waist, with buttocks heavy as lead. To he with any taste, the younger, turned his head. When Gawain glimpsed with that lovely young lady, with permission from the Lord, he went towards the ladies. The elder he saluted, bowing low to her. On the lovelier one he lightly laid his arms, kissed her as was proper in court, and spoke courteous words. They asked him who he was, and quickly he begged to be their servant, if they so desired. They took him between them, and talking, they led him to a fireplace in a fair room, and first of all called for spices, which men spared no speed to bring them, and with much wine that was well to their liking. The Lord, for their delight, leaped up quite often. Many times he would make them play merry games. He took off his hat and hung it high on a spear, offering it as a prize for any to win who could devise the most fun at the Christmas feast. And I shall try, by my faith, to contend with the best, with the help of my friends, before I forfeit this hat. Thus, with laughter and joyfulness, the Lord made his jests to gladden Sir Gawain with games that night in the hall. At last, the time was due. The Lord gave the lights out call. Sir Gawain now withdrew to bed just like them all. On the morning every man remembers the time when our dear Lord, doomed to die, was born. And every home wakes in happiness on earth for his sake. So it was there on that day with the dearest delights. At each meal and at dinner, men set marvelous dishes on the days, including the most delicious of meats. The ancient woman was highest at the table, and the master took him properly to her side. Gawain and the glad lady together were seated in the center, where it seemed right. Dinner service began. And so on through the hall in honor they followed. When each good man in his position had been served, there was good, there was festivity, there was fullness of joy. And to the whole tale, I would find it tedious for the pains I would take in pointing out every detail. Yet I will say that Gawain and the woman who was so fine in companionship took such pleasure together in sweet society, speaking soft words, their courteous conversation clean and clear of all evil. So with their pleasant pastime, no pure prince's sport compares. Drums beat and trumpets blow. The pipers play their airs. Each man his own mind knows, and they two-minded theirs. Much feasting followed the first and the next day, and the healthy third come hastening after. The joyfulness of St. John's Day was glorious to hear, and that finished their revels, as had been arranged. For there were guests who had to go in the gray morning. So a wondrous celebration they held, and wine they drank, and danced, and delightfully they caroled. At last, when it was late, they sought permission to leave, to go on their way, each one a stranger of status. Good night, then said Gawain, but the good man stopped him, and led him to his own chamber, to the chimney corner, and there he delayed him, and lovingly thanked him for the pride and pleasure his presence had brought, for so honoring his house at the high season, and deciding to adorn his dwelling with his presence. Believe me, sir, while I live, I shall thank my luck that Gawain was my guest at God's own feast. Great thanks, sir, said Gawain, but the goodness is yours. All the honor is your own. May the High King repay you, and I am under your roof. What you ask I must perform. I am bound now to be, for better or worse, by right. Wanting to employ Gawain, the Lord now pressed the knight. But he said he can't be retained, and turned down the invite. Then, with courteous question, he inquired of Gawain what dire need had driven him on that holiday date, with such focus from the king's court to come forth alone before the holidays from men's homes had wholly finished. Indeed, sir, he said, you say the plain truth. A high and urgent mission brought me out of my house. For I have set out on a quest to seek a place, though I wonder where in the world I must wander to find it. I would not miss finding it by New Year's morning, for all the land in Arthur's kingdom, so our Lord help me. And so, sir, this question I inquire of you here. Can you tell me in truth if you've heard of the Green Chapel, on what grounds it may stand, or of the Green Knight that guards it, all green in color? For terms were established between us for me to meet that man at that place, if I remained alive, and the named New Year's Day is now nearly upon me. And I would find that Lord, if God will allow me, more gladly by God's Son than gain any treasure. So indeed, if you please, I must depart now. For my business I have now but barely 3 days, and I will willingly fall dead than fail in this mission. Then laughing, the Lord said, you linger, now linger you must. For when it's time for that meeting, I will show you the road. On what ground is the Green Chapel? Let it grieve you no more. In your bed you shall be, sir, till the daylight is broad, without fear, and then we'll travel on the first of the year. And come to the spot at mid-morning, there to complete what you know. Remain till New Year's Day, then rise and we will go. I'll set you on your way. It's only 2 miles or so. Then Gawain was delighted, and he gladly laughed. Now I thank you 1,000 times for this most of all. Now my quest will be accomplished, and so, as you like, I will dwell a few days here and do whatever you order. The Lord then seized him and set him in a seat beside him, and let the ladies be sent for to delight them more, for their sweet pleasure there in peace by themselves. For love of him, that Lord was as loud in his joy as one nearly out of his mind, who scarcely made sense. Then he called to the knight, calling out loudly, you've promised to do whatever deed I propose. Will you hold to my request here at this moment? Yes, certainly, sir. Then said the true knight, while I remain in your manor, I will obey your command. Well, he replied, you have traveled far and are tired out, and then I've kept you awake. You're not well yet. It is certain you need both food and sleep. Upstairs you shall stay, sir, and sleep there in comfort till mass time tomorrow, and then go to a meal when you wish with my wife, who shall sit with you and comfort you with her company until I return to court. You stay, and I shall early rouse, and for hunting make my way. Gawain gracefully bows. Your wish I will obey. One thing more, said the master. We'll make an agreement. Whatever I win in the woods at once shall be yours, and whatever you may gain here, you shall give me in exchange. We shall swap then, sweet man. Come, say what you think. Whether one's life turns out lucky or lacking, we must trade. By God, said Gawain, I agree to it all, and whatever gain you propose seems pleasant to me. Done. It's a bargain. Who'll bring us a drink? So said the lord of that land. They laughed, one and all. They drank and they talked, and they did as they pleased, these lords and ladies, as long as they wished. And then, with French customs and many courteous phrases, they stood in sweet debate, and soft words exchanged, and lovely they kissed, and then exited. With trusty attendants and torches gleaming, they were brought at last to their beds, so soft, one and all. Yet before to bed they came, the agreement his thoughts recall. He knew how to play a game, the old lord of that hall. I will take another short break before we get into part 3. Part 3. Before the first daylight, the folks woke up. The guests that were to go called for their horses. They hurried up and sought to saddle them in haste, to stow all their stuff and strap up their bags. The men of rank then arranged themselves, got ready for riding. On the saddle they swiftly leaped, then seized their bridles, and went off on the ways where they wished to go. The lord of the land was not last of them all to be ready to ride. With a retinue of his men, he ate a hurried mouthful after hearing mass, and with his horn he hastened at once to the hunting field. When daylight came dimly upon the earth, he and his huntsmen were upon their horses. Then the leaders of the hounds leashed them in couples, opened the kennel door, and cried to them, "Out!" and boldly blew on bugles 3 full-length blasts. Beagles barked, making a boisterous noise, and they whipped at those that wandered off on a scent. 100 hunting dogs, I have heard, among the best were they. To their stations hunters go. The leashes were cast away, and many a bugle blow, waking the woods that day. At the first burst of the barking, all beasts trembled. Deer dashed through the valley, bewildered by dread, and hastened to the heights. But they hotly were greeted and turned back by huntsmen, who boldly shouted. They let the harts go past with their high antlers, and the brave bucks also with their branching horns. And the castle's lord had decided at the close of the season that no man should attack the male deer. The hinds were held back with hay and halt, the does driven with great noise to the deep valleys. The hunters released a sleet of arrows. At each turn under the trees went a twanging shaft that bit hard into a brown beast with a barbed head. Oh, they bellowed and they bled. And on the banks they died, and the hounds in haste always hotly pursued them. And hunters with high horns hurried behind them with such a clamor and cry as if cliffs had split open. And any beast broke away from the boughs, shooting there, it was shot and slain at the receiving station. When they had been hurried from the height and hustled to the waters, the men were so wise in their craft that as they watched below, and their grey hounds were so great that they got them at once and flung them down in a flash, as fast as can be in men's sight. The lord then, like a boy, often rode or stood upright, and was in blissful joy until the dark of night. Thus the lord leads the game below the linden trees, and Gawain, the bold, lies in a good bed, being lazy till the walls are lit by the light of day, until a costly quilt with curtains around him. And he stayed almost sleeping until he heard stealthily come a soft sound at his door, as it secretly opened, and from under the quilt he craned his head. A corner of the curtain he caught and pulled up a little, and looked that way warily to learn what it was. It was the lady herself, most lovely to see, that cautiously closed the door quietly behind her, and drew near to his bed. Then the knight was embarrassed, and laid down swiftly to look as if he slept. And as and she stepped silently, approaching his bed. She cast back the curtain and crept within, and sat herself down softly on the side of his bed, and there lingered very long to look at him awakening. He lay there waiting a long while, and wondered and mused in his mind how the matter would go. To what point? Perhaps to some surprise, he thought. Yet he said to himself, it would be more proper to inquire in due course, and ask what she wishes. Then, rousing, he rolled over and turned around to her, and he lifted his eyelids with a look of wonder, and made the sign of the cross, thus safeguarding himself with what's right. With chin and cheeks so sweet of blended red and white, with grace she brought to greet thin lips and laughter light. Good morning, Sir Gawain, said the gracious lady. You are a careless sleeper, if one can creep on you so. How easily you are caught. If we don't make a truce, I shall bind you in your bed. You may be assured, with laughter the lady thus lightly jest. Good morning to your grace, said Gawain gladly. You shall work on me your will, and I'll be very pleased, for I submit immediately, and for mercy I cry, and that is best, as I see it, for I have no other choice. Thus he jested in return, with much gentle laughter. But if you would, gracious lady, grant me permission to leave, and release your prisoner, and request him to rise, I would abandon this bed, and better arrange myself. It would then prove more pleasant to chat with you. Nay, in truth, fair sir, said the sweet lady, you shall not go from your bed. I will control you better here. I shall tuck you in tightly on the other side also, and then talk with my true knight, who I've taken prisoner. For I know well indeed that you are Sir Gawain, to whom all men pay homage wherever you ride. Your honor and your courtesy by the courteous are praised by lords and by ladies, by all living people. And right here you now are, and we all by ourselves, my husband and his huntsmen have ridden far away, other men are in bed, and my maids also. The door is closed and secured with a lock that is strong. And since I have in this house the one who all delight in, I will now take my turn while I have the chance for a talk yet still, to me you'll welcome be, to delight and take your fill. For duty requires of me to serve you, and I will. Upon my word, said Gawain, that is well, I guess, though I am not now he of whom you are speaking. To attain such an honor as here you speak of, I am a knight unworthy. And this indeed I know, by God, I would be glad if I seemed good to you in whatever I could say or could offer in service to the pleasure of your excellence. It would be pure delight. In good faith, Sir Gawain, said the gracious lady, the prowess and perfection that please all others. If I lacked in my words, it would show little respect, but there are numerous ladies who would now have you in their hold, sir, as I have you here, pleasantly to play with in polished conversation, to seek their solace and to soothe their sorrows, more so than from the goods or gold that they own. But I thank him who on high heaven is Lord, that I have what all desire here wholly in my hands by grace. None were as warm and sure as that lady with fair face. The knight with answers pure replied in every case. Madam, he said, Mary reward you, for I have enjoyed in good faith your generous favor, and much honor have received because of others' kind words. And as for the courtesy they give me, since my claim is not equal, the honor is your own, who always mean well. Nay, by Mary, the lady demurred. As for me, I deny it, for I worth all the legion of women alive, and all the wealth in the world that my will possessed, if I could exchange at my choice and choose a husband, for the noble nature I know in you, Sir Knight, in beauty and blessings and bearing so good, of which earlier I have heard, and hold it now true, then no lord alive would I select before you. In truth, lady, he returned, you took a husband far better, but I am proud of the praise you are pleased to give me, and as your servant, I sincerely regard you as my sovereign, and I am your knight. May Christ reward you. Thus of many matters they spoke till mid-morning passed, and always the lady held herself as one who loved him much, and he countered her courteously, ever careful in his manner. Even if I were to Even if I were the most lovely lady, thought the lady to herself, his love would be lacking, since his quest is all he seemed to know. And how he soon shall grieve, and how it must be so. The lady asked to leave, and at once he let her go. She gave him a good day, and with a glance she laughed. And as she stood, she astonished him with the strength of her words. May he that praises the sport of speech reward you. But since you are Gawain, it gives me much to think over. Why so? The knight then eagerly asked her, afraid that he had failed in the form of his conversation. But God bless you for this reason, carefully she replied, that one so good as Gawain the gracious, who encompasses all courtesy within himself, should have lingered so long with a lady without craving a kiss, as a courteous knight by some tactful turn that their talk has led to. Then said Gawain, Very well, as you wish, I will kiss at your command, as suits a knight, and more, to not displease you, so plead it no longer. She came near there and caught him in her arms, and down delicately bending, dearly she kissed him. They courteously commended each other to Christ. Without more to do, through the door she departed, and he rose up in haste and got ready at once. He called to his chamberlain, chose his clothes, and goes forth when clothed all gladly to mass. Then he went to a meal that was meant for him, and made merry all day, till the moon arose for games. Never so happily engaged between two worthy dames, the youthful and the aged, this night's laughs roared like flames. And meanwhile the lord of the land to his delight was outside, hunting by forest and field after hinds that were barren. When the sun began to slope, he had slain such a number of does and other deer, one might doubt it was true. Then the fierce folk at last came flocking in, and they quickly assembled a collection of those they killed. There the master hastened with a handful of his men, gathered together those greatest in fat, and had them ripped open rightly, as the rules require. Some there examined the insides, searching around, and 2 fingers width of fat they found in the leanest. Next, they slit from the top of the chest, seized the stomach, shaved it with a sharp knife, and cut away the grease. Next, ripped the 4 limbs off and tore off the hide. Then they broke open the belly, removed the bowels, nimbly flinging them afar, as well as the flesh is in the knot. They grasped the throat skillfully, disengaging it, the gullet from the windpipe, did away with the guts. They then sheared the shoulders, and with their sharpened knives, pulling the sinews through a small cut to keep the sides whole. Next, they burst open the breast. They broke it apart, and again they were there at the throat where they began, cutting up quickly till they came to the fork and extracted the entrails, and then entering after, they tore away quickly all the tissue along the ribs. Then they broke off with skill and the bones of the back, down even to the hip, all that hung there together, and hoisted up it all whole, and hacked it off there. And that is what they call by name the numbles, or so I find. Along the seams of the thigh, the flaps they fold behind, to split them knives now fly, the back they now unbind. Both the head and the neck they hack off after, and next swiftly they split the sides from the spine, and that bone they throw in the forest for the crows. Then by the rib they thrust a thong through both thick sides, and then by the ankle of the legs they hang them both up. All the huntsmen were paid their proper wages. Upon the scraps of the fair beasts they then fed their hounds. On the liver and the lungs and the leather of the bellies, with bread bathed in blood, blended amongst them. Boldly horns announced the prize amidst the barking of dogs, and then taking up their venison, they traveled homeward, striking up strongly many a stirring horn call. When daylight was done, they all duly came into the noble castle, where quietly the knights unload. In bliss the fire was set, and in the lord now strode. Gawain with him now met, and freely pleasure flowed. Then the master commanded his men to meet in that hall, and both dames to come down with their damsels also. Before all the folk on that floor, he ordered fine men to fetch forth his venison and place it before him. And gracious in his game, he called to Gawain, announced the number by tally of the nimble beasts, and showed him the shining fat all shorn from the ribs. How does this performance please you? Does it deserve do I deserve praise? As my skill earned me the most eager of thanks. Yes, indeed, the other said, here is venison, the fairest that I've seen in 7 years in the season of winter. And I'd give it all to you, Gawain, said the good man at once. For as you agreed, you may claim it as your own. That is true, he replied. And I tell you the same of what of worth within these walls I have won also with as good a will, I think, is awarded to you. His fair neck he held closely in his arms and kissed him with all the kindness that his courtesy knew. There, take all my gains, sir. I got nothing more. I would give it up gladly, even if it were greater. That's a good one, said the good man. Greatly I thank you. Perhaps since yours is better, you briefly could tell me where you won this wealth by which you possess. That was not the agreement, he said. Question me no more, for you have what's due to you, and so your yearning may cease. Their laughs and voices grow, their carefree joys increase. To supper soon they go, for many delicacies. Later, by the chimney in the chamber, they were seated. The best wine was abundant, while brought to them often, and again they agreed on a game for tomorrow. To keep the same agreement as they had made before, they'd have no choice with their chances by exchanging whatever new thing they got when they gathered at night. They concluded this agreement before all the courtiers. The drink for the deal was brought forth in jest. Then they asked permission to leave, and at last left. And away then at once each went to his bed. When the cock had crowed and cackled just 3 times, the lord leaped from his bed, as did each of his loyal men, so that their meal had been made, the mass was over, and folks ran for the forest before the first daybreak to chase. Loud sounds of hunters and horns, as over the plains they race, and let loose among the thorns the dogs with quicker pace. Soon the dogs cried for a chase in a thicket by the marsh. The huntsman who first found the scent hollered. He spoke stirring words to his dog with a daring voice. The hounds that heard it hastened forward swiftly. and fell fast on the scent, some 40 at once. Then such a barking and bellowing of bloodhounds together arose that the rocks rang all around them. Hunters encouraged them with horns and with hollers, and then all in a line rushed on together between a pond in that forest and formidable rock. In a tangle under the tall cliff at the pond's edges, where the rough rock ruggedly in ruins was fallen. And they went forward to find it, followed by hunters who made a circle around the cliff and a clutter of stones, till they were well aware that it waited within, the very beast that the barking bloodhounds had spoken of. Then they beat on the bushes and forced him out, and he came bringing peril to people on his path. It was a boar without rival that burst out upon them. That aged and lone beast had long left its herd, for he was savage, and the biggest of all boars. Grim indeed when he grunted, then aghast were many. For 3 at the first thrust he threw to the ground, and sprang off with great speed, sparing the others, and they hollered with high voices and shouted, "Ha ha!" and held horn to mouth, blowing hard as they rallied. Many were the wild mumblings of men and of dogs as they raced after this boar with blaring noise you'd want to expel. At times, he turns their way and comes to give them hell. The hounds get hurt, and they in pain all yowl and yell. The hunters then hurried up, eager to shoot him, aiming their arrows at him and often hitting. The arrow points were too poor, bouncing off his body. The arrowheads had no harm on his hide at all. When the wood-shaven shaft shattered in pieces, his head came back hopping after it hit him. But when the heavier hits came and he started to really hurt, then with a brain wild for battle, he burst out upon them. Ruthlessly he roughed them up as he rushed forward, and many cried at this coming and quickly withdrew. The Lord on a light horse went leaping after him. A bold man on the battlefield, he blew on his bugle the rally call as he rode through the rough thickets pursuing this wild boar till the sunbeams became slanted. Thus in such deeds they properly passed this day, while our brave knight, beloved, there lies in his bed at home in good happiness and hospitality with rich display. The lady didn't forget. She came to say good day. Early on, all set to wear his will away. She crept to the curtain and peeped at the knight. Sir Gawain graciously then welcomed her first, and she answered him likewise, eagerly speaking, and sat softly by his side, and suddenly she laughed, and with a look full of love delivered these words: "Sir, if you are Gawain, I think it strange that a man so well-meaning and ever mindful of good cannot comprehend the customs of gentlemen, and if one teaches you them, you do not keep them in mind. You have forgotten altogether what a day ago I taught by the plainest points I could put into words." "What is that?" he said at once. "I am not aware of it all, but if you are telling the truth, I must take all the blame." "As yet, as to kisses," she advised, "I give you this advice. Wherever favor is found, don't delay to claim them. that is proper for all who care for courteous manners. Take back, said the true knight, that teaching, my dear, for I dared not do that, fearing your refusal. Were I rebuffed, I should be to blame for so bold an offer. In faith, said the fair lady, you may not be refused. You are strong enough to constrain someone by strength, if you like. If any were so ill-bred as to answer you nay. Indeed, by God, said Gawain, you graciously speak, but force finds no favor among the folks where I live, and there is no gift that is not given gladly and freely. I'm at your call and command to kiss when you please. You may receive as you desire or stop me, since this is your place. Then bend down the lady bent, and sweetly kissed his face. Much speech they both then spent on life from grief to grace. I would learn from you, Lord, the lady then said, if you would not mind my asking, what is the meaning of this, that one so young as you are in tears and so joyful, so well known for knighthood and good breeding, yet in all chivalry, the chief thing chosen to praise in the literature of knighthood is the loyal practice of love, for talking of the tribulations that these true knights suffer, it is the title and content and text of their works. How lovers for their true love risked their lives, have endured for their dear ones dangerous trials, until avenged by their valor, their adversity overcome. They have brought bliss to her by their own brave virtues. And you are the knight of noblest renown in our times, and your fame and fine name afar are published. And I have sat by you now for the second time, yet your mouth has never made any remark I've heard that ever more or less belong to the language of love. Surely, you who are so accomplished and so courtly in your vows should be prompt to expound to a young pupil by signs that and examples of the science of lovers. Why are you who has been so honored ignorant? Or else you think me too stupid to understand your courtship, but nay, alone I'll come and sit, a pupil for your play. Come teach me of your wit, while my lord is far away. In good faith, said Gawain, may God reward you. I gain great delight, and am glad beyond measure that one so worthy as you should be willing to come here and take pains with so poor a man. Playing this game with me, showing favor in any form, it fills me with joy. But for me to take up the task of lecturing on true love, to comment on the texts and tales of knighthood to you, who I am certain possess far more skill in that art, double what 100 of me would have, or shall I have while I remain on earth, it would be manifold foolishness in faith, my lady. I wish to work to fulfill your will, if I am able, being so indebted in honor, and Lord, so help me, desiring always to remain your servant. Thus she tested and teased him, tempting him often, so as to lure him to love and whatever lay in her heart. But his defense was so fair that no fault could be seen, nor any evil upon either side, nor anything but joy did their actions consist. They laughed, and long they played. At last she stopped and kissed. Her farewell gracefully made, she went wherever she wished. Then, rousing from his rest, he rose to hear mass, and then their delicious dinner was laid and served. In delight, he spent the long day with the ladies. But the Lord over the lands leaped back and forth, pursuing his fierce boar that hurtled over the hills and bit into the backs of the best of the hounds whenever surrounded, until bowmen's arrows battered him and made him release his teeth and move onward. That's how fierce the arrows flew when they fired together, and yet the boar still pushed aside the strongest of them, till at last he was so spent he could speed no further. But in what haste he still had left, he ran for a hole beside a rock where a river was flowing. He put the bank to his back and began to dig. Fearfully, the froth of his mouth foamed from the corners. He wielded his white tusks. Then weary were all the brave men who were bold enough to stand by him after attacking from afar, yet the danger made them not come too near. He'd hurt so many before that all of them had fear of facing the tusks once more of a beast whose rage was clear. Finally, the Lord himself came, spurring his horse, and saw the boar brought there, and his men all around him. Fearing nothing, he dismounted his horse, brandishing a bright blade, and boldly advanced, strongly striding through the stream to where stood the fugitive. The wild beast was aware of him, and with his weapon in hand, and his hair rose high, and with such hate he snorted that folks feared for the Lord that his foe would finish him. Out came the boar and set on him at once. And the boar and the brave man were both in a match in the wildest of the water. The beast was soon beaten, for the man watched him well. And as they met, he once struck his point straight, steadily in the boar's neck, and hit him up to the hilt, so that his heart was burst. And with a snarl he succumbed and was swept down the waterway. By 100 hounds he was caught. They fiercely bit their prey, till the bank dogs dragged and brought the body to where it lay. There, men blew blaring horns for the prize, and the hunters who still could loudly hooray. The hounds barked at the beast, as told to by their masters, who of that hard-fought chase were the chief huntsmen. Then one that was well learned in woodsman's wisdom, with clever carefulness began to carve up his boar. First he hacked off his head and set it on high, and he ripped him roughly down the ridge of the back, brought the bowels out, burning them on embers, and with them, blended with blood, the hounds were rewarded. Next, he broke up the boar flesh in broad slabs and pulled out the organs in order as is proper. And he sewed the halves together to make one whole, tied it up tightly on a thick pole. Now, with this boar, they hastened homeward, and the boar's head was borne in front of the brave lord himself, who struck him in the stream with strength of his hand so great. Until he saw Gawain, he felt he couldn't wait. Unsure of what he'd gain, the other came there straight. The lord with his loud voice and merry laughter gladly greeted Gawain when he saw him. The fair ladies were fetched, and the folks all assembled, and he showed them the shorn slabs, and reported of this wild boar's width and wondrous length, and his wickedness is in warring with them, when he fled through the woods with fair words. His friend then applauded the feat and praised the great prowess he had proved in his deeds. For such strength in a beast, the brave lord declared, or such size in a boar, he had never seen before. Now, then they handled the huge head, and he praised it highly, showing horror at the hideous thing to honor the Lord. Now, Gawain, said the good man, this game is yours by our agreement we concluded, as you clearly know. That is true, he replied, and I promise you all my winnings, that I think now I shall reward you in exchange. He grabbed his neck and courteously gave him a kiss, and swiftly he served him a second kiss on the spot. Now we are done, he said, and clear for this evening all agreements we made since I came to this house. I've paid all that's due. The Lord said, by St. Guile, your match I never knew. You'll be wealthy in a while if more such trades you do. Then they laid the table boards on top of the wooden legs, tossed the tablecloth on, and then bright light awakened along the walls when men put waxen torches there, and servants went swiftly around the hall. Much gladness and joy began then to spring around the fire on the hearth, and freely and often at supper, and later there were many songs of delight, such as old hymns of Christmas and new carols with dances, amid all the well-mannered merriment that men can tell of. And always our noble knight was next to the lady. Such glances she gave him of her gracious favor, secretly sending sweet looks to charm that strong man, that he was completely perplexed and felt unpleasant at heart. Yet he lost none of his courtesy by coldly refusing her, so he graciously engaged her, going against the grain of proper play. They all enjoyed the hall as long as they wished to stay. The Lord put out a call. To the room now, make your way. There, amid merry words and wine, they had a mind once more to talk the same talk about tomorrow, New Year's Eve. But Gawain said, grant me permission to leave tomorrow, for the appointment approaches that I pledged myself to. The Lord loathed to allow it. I wanted to keep him longer, but said, as I'm a true man, I swear on my virtue that the Green Chapel you shall have. And go to your business in the dawn of your New Year's Day, sir, before daytime begins. Tonight, you'll lie down upstairs and be at ease, and tomorrow I shall hunt in the woods and hold to my terms, treating you truly. So when I return, we'll trade all our gains. For I have tested you twice, and I find you trustworthy. Now, third time pays for all. Remember that tomorrow. Let us make merry while we may, and jump for joy, for worries one may win whenever one wishes. Gawain graciously agreed and lingered there. Then a joyful drink is served, and off to beds they go, each with a light. Sir Gawain now lies and sleeps soundly through the night. His host out of bed leaps, equipped for hunting's fight. After mass, he and his men munched on a quick morsel. Merry was the morning. He called for his horse. All the huntsmen on horses who would follow behind him were ready to ride, mounted and equipped at the gates. Wondrously fair were the fields, for the frost clung there. In red rose hue over rows of clouds arise the sun, sailing clear along the coasts of the cloudy heavens. The hunters let loose the hounds by the forest border. At the roar of their horns, the rocks rang in the woods. Some fell right on the trail to where the fox was lying, crossing and recrossing it, as is the cunning of their craft. A hound then gives a bark, and the huntsman calls his name. Around him press his companions in a pack, all snuffling, running forth in a rabble right in his path. The fox flits before them. They find him at once, and when they catch sight of him, they hotly pursue, crying out clearly with a clamor of their anger. He dodges and doubles back, though many dense patches, and looping back often, he lurks and listens under fences. And last, at a little ditch, he leaps over a thorn hedge, sneaks out secretly by the side of a thicket. He figures he is out of the woods and away from pursuit. Thus he went unaware to a lookout spot of huntsmen, where at once he was chased by 3 fierce hounds, all gray. He swiftly runs again, makes them go astray. In fear and in great pain, in woods he speeds away. Then the hounds were hollering to their heart's delight, and all the pack came upon him, there pressing together. Once in view, their barking called out such a curse that the clusters of cliffs might have clattered into ruin. Here he was hollered at when hunters came on him, and there he was assailed with snarling tongues. There he was threatened and often called a thief. With hunters at his tail, he could never take a break on the trail. Often he was chased if he rushed onwards. Often he swerved back again. So subtle was Foxy. Yes, he led the Lord and his hunters till they lagged behind him, and thus it went by mountain and by hill till mid-afternoon. Meanwhile, the courteous knight in the castle in comfort slumbered behind the fine curtains in the cold morning, but the lady in love-seeking had no liking to sleep, nor wanted to fail in the purpose she had planned in her heart. So rising up swiftly, she sought out his room now in a fine gown that to the ground was measured, and was fur-lined most fairly with a hem well trimmed, with no close-fitting cap on her head, only the clear jewels that were twined around her headdress by 20s in clusters. Her noble face and her neck all were laid naked. Her gown was low cut in front and at the back also. She came through the bedroom door and closed it behind her, opening the window wide, and called to awake him, thus greeting him gladly with her gracious words of cheer. Man, how can you sleep? The morning sky is clear. He lay He lay in darkness deep when those words hit his ear. In heavy darkness drowning, he muttered words from dreams as a man whose mind was beset with many mournful thoughts of how destiny would bring him his doom on the day at the Green Chapel, when he must play the game and be obliged to bear a blow without debate at all. But when she came so beautifully, he recalled then his wits swept aside his slumber and swiftly answered. The lady in loving gown came laughing sweetly, bent down over his dear face and deftly kissed him. He greeted her graciously with a glad welcome, seeing her glorious and gorgeously attired, so faultless in her features and so fine in her colors, that at once joy welled up and went warmly into his heart. With smiles sweet and soft, they turned swiftly to merriment, and in the talk between them all was blissful and bright. They spoke with speeches good, and words that felt so right. Great danger between them stood, if Mary forgot her knight. For she, queen-like and peerless, pressed him so closely, led him so near the line, that at last he needed either to offend her by refusing her or accept her. He cared for his courtesy, and not being called by her a coward, yet more so in his sad case, if he should commit a sin against the owner of the house to his host, he'd be a traitor. God help me, he said to himself, that shall not happen. Smiling sweetly, he started to turn away all the friendly words that fell from her lips. She then said to the knight, Now shame you deserve, if you love not one that lies alone here beside you, who, beyond all women in the world, is wounded in her heart, unless you are a lover more beloved, whom you like better, and have tied yourself to that fair one so tightly and truly that you cannot release your desire. That's what I believe now. Do tell me it is truly, if it truly is so, I beg you. For all that men swear by, conceal not this truth and guile. The knight said, By St. John, and softly gave a smile, In faith I haven't one, and none will have meanwhile. Your words, said the woman, are the worst there could be, but I am answered indeed, and it's hard to endure. Kiss me now kindly, and I will quickly depart. I may but mourn while I live as one so much in love. Sighing, she sank down and sweetly kissed him. Then soon she left his side and said, as she stood there, Now, my dear, at this parting, do give me this pleasure. Give me something as your gift. Your glove, it might be, that I may remember you, dear man, lessening my mourning. Now, on my word, he said, I wish I had here the loveliest thing that in my land I possess for your delight, for worthily and wondrously often you have earned more reward than by rights than what is now within my reach to give, except to give you as love token a thing of little value. It would be beneath your honor to have here and now a glove given as a gift from Sir Gawain, and I am here on a quest in unknown lands, and have no servant bearers with baggage and beautiful things, unluckily, my dear lady. For your delight at this time, a man must do as he must. Please don't be pained. He tried this line. Nay, noble knight, you're free, she said while looking fine. Though you have nothing for me, Here's something for you that's mine. She offered him a rich ring made of gold, with a stone like a star standing up clear that bore brilliant beams as bright as the sun. I will tell you, it was worth wealth beyond measure. But the knight said nay to it and announced them at once. I will have no gifts before God from your grace this time. I have none to give you in return, and none will I take. She pushed it and pressed him, and he refused her pleading, and swore swiftly upon his word that he would not accept it. And she, sorry that he refused, said to him further, if to my ring you say nay, since it appears too rich, and you would not so deeply be indebted to me, I shall give you my girdle, for less gain that will be. She unbounded a belt swiftly that wrapped around her waist, tied on top of her dress under her handsome outer coat. It was made of green silk and with gold trim, though only braided around the borders, embroidered by hand, and this she gave to Gawain, and gladly pressed him, saying that though it was of no worth, he should take it. And he said nay, he would not. He would never receive either gold or jewelry before God's grace sent him to accomplish the quest for which he had come here. And therefore, I beg you, please do not be angry and cease to insist on it, for to you I will always say no. I'm deeply in debt to you for the friendship that you show. I'll be your servant true, however things may go. Do you refuse this silk? Asked the fair lady, because it appears so poor. See how small in size and smaller in value, but a knight, one who knew of its inner nature, would probably appraise it at a fair higher price. For whoever got girdled with its green belt, while he keeps it well clutched closely around him, there is none so strong under heaven who can hit him, for he cannot be killed by any cunning hand. The knight then took note, and thought now in his heart it'd be a prize that in that peril that was appointed to him. When he got to the Green Chapel, to be granted his sentence, if by some subtle way he weren't slain, be a supernatural device. After he heard her advice, he didn't debate her words, and she pressed on him the belt, pushing it eagerly, and he agreed, and she gave it very gladly indeed, and prayed that he, for her sake, would never part with it, but on his honor hide it from her husband. And he then agreed that no one would ever know, nay, none in the world but they. With a heart that was sincere, great thanks, he'd often say. The knight she found so dear a third time kissed that day. Then she left him alone, receiving permission to leave, for there was no more amusement she could get from the man. When she was gone, Sir Gawain got himself ready, arose, and robed himself in noble clothing. He put away the love lace that the lady had given, hiding it carefully where he could find it later. Then, first of all, he chose to travel to the chapel, privately approached a priest, and prayed that he would uplift his life, that he might learn better how his soul should be saved when he was sent away from the world. There he cleanly confessed himself and declared his misdeeds, both the major and minor ones, and for mercy he begged. To absolve him of them, he asked the good priest, and he absolved him and made him as safe and as clean as if tomorrow doomsday were indeed due to come. Thereafter, he made more merriment among the fair ladies with gentle carol dances and all kinds of enjoyment, more than he ever did before that day. And when darkness came, so did bliss. Each man there said, "Oh, how delighted this man is! Since when he came till now, he's not as happy as this. Now indoors let him dwell, and have his dearest delight, when the Lord yet spurs his horse to speed in his sport. At last the fox that he followed so long fell, for as he flew through the forest to find the furry villain, where the hounds he had heard pressed hard on his trail, Foxy on his road came through a rough thicket, and all the hounds in a rush were right on his heels. The man, aware of the wild creature, watchfully awaits him, brings out his shining spear, and at the beast hurls it. And the fox was frightened, and would have backed away, but a hound hastened him, and had him before he could. And right before the horse's feet, they fell upon him, and the wily fox was worried amidst the wild clamor. The Lord quickly gets his feet on land and lifts the fox, swiftly snatching him away from their salivating mouths, holding him high over his head, hurraying loudly. And there many furious hounds bark at him fiercely. Huntsmen hurried there, and with horns many were sounding at an assembly, till they saw the master. When his noble company had now come together, all those bearing bugles were blowing at once, and all the others hollered who had no horn. It was the merriment music. It was the merriest music that ever men played. Resounding song cleansed Foxy's soul, which now awoke. To the hounds they pay their fees, their heads they fondly stroke, and Foxy then they seize, and off they skin his cloak. And then they hastened homeward, for night was now at hand, making loud music on their mighty horns. The Lord dismounted at last at his beloved home, found a fire in the hall, and there by the fireplace Sir Gawain the Good, who also was glad, among the ladies in delight, had a life most joyful. He was wearing a blue cloak that came to the ground, his outer coat well woven with a soft lining, and its hood of similar hue hung on his shoulder. Both were all fringed with white fur, while very finely. Um, he met the master in the midst of the gathering, and in gladness greeted him, and graciously said, "In this case, I'll be the first to fulfill our agreement that we made when we spared nothing on our drinking." Then grabs the knight and kisses him thrice, as long and deliberately as he could lay lips upon him. "By Christ," the other said, "you've come by a fortune in winning such prizes. Were they worth what you paid?" "In fact, the price was not important," he promptly answered, "and now plainly is paid the profit I gained." "By Mary," said the other man, "mine does not measure up, for I have hunted all day, and nothing else I have caught but this foul fox fur. May the devil have it." And That is a very poor price to pay for such treasures as you have thrust upon me. 3 such kisses so good. 'Tis enough, then, said Gawain. I thank you, by the rood. And how the fox was slain, he told him as they stood. With amusement and music, and meats for their pleasure, they were as merry as any men could be. Amid the laughter of the ladies and light words of jest, both Gawain and the good lord could be no gladder, unless they were tipsy or else drunken indeed. Both the host and his household went on with their games till the hour had approached when they all had to part. The fine folk now were all bound for bed at last, bowing low to the Lord. As the first to leave there, the good knight graciously thanked him for such a wondrous welcome as I have had within these walls. For your honor at this high feast, the high king reward you. In your service I pledge myself as your servant, if you accept. For I must make my move tomorrow, as you know. If you give me some good man to go, as you promised, to guide me to the Green Chapel, as God may permit me to face on New Year's Day such doom as I must. On my word, said the host, with healthy good will I promptly shall hold to all that I have promised. Then a servant he assigns him to escort on the road and through the valleys to lead him. So without doubt or delay, he must through wild and wooden ways more straightly pursue. He said, my thanks receive for all you've done and will do. The knight then took his leave of the ladies too. Sadly, he kissed them and said his goodbyes, and pressed often upon them with plenty of thanks, and they promptly repaid him with the same. To God's keeping they gave him, sadly sighing. And then he parted with courtesy from the people of the castle, gave thanks to all the men he met for their care, for his comfort, and for their kind service, and the trouble each had taken in attending to him. And every one was as sad to wish him goodbye as if they had lived all their lives in honor with Gawain. Then, with servants carrying lights, he was led to his chamber and brought sweetly to bed to rest. I cannot say for certain if he slept soundly, for he had many matters of the next morning in his thought. There let him lie in peace, so near the goal he sought. If your patience would increase, I'll tell what morning brought. Another quick break before part 4. Part 4. Now the new year draws near, and the night passes. Day comes driving away the dark, as ordained by God. The wild weather of the world is awakened in the land. Clouds keenly cast upon the cold upon earth, with bitter breath from the north biting the flesh. Snow comes shivering sharp and to shrivel the wild things. The whistling wind whirls from up high and drowns every valley full of very deep snowdrifts. The knight listens a long time as he lies in bed, though he lays down his eyelids. He sleeps very little. At the crowing of every cock, he clearly recalls his quest. Briskly he rose from his bed before the break of day, for there was light from a lamp that illuminated his chamber. He called to his servant, who quickly answered him, and he ordered him to bring his armor and his saddle. The man got his clothes and collected his armor, and then was ready to suit up Sir Gawain in full dress. First, he put on him his clothes to keep out the cold, and after that, his chainmail armor that had been well tended, both his chest piece and his plates polished all brightly, the rings rid of the rust on his rich chainmail, all was neat as if new, and the knight thanked him with delight. He put on every piece, all polished, shining bright, the best from here to Greece. My horse, called out the knight. He put on the most prominent pieces himself, his outer cloth, with the image of a clear symbol upon velvet, surrounded by pure gleaming gems, all bound and braided about it, with embroidered seams and with fine furs lined wondrously within. Yet he did not overlook the lace the lady had given him. That Gawain would not forget because of his own good thinking. When he had hung his sword upon his huge hips, he twined the love token twice, then around himself, and swiftly tied it snugly to his waist. That girdle of green silk, and gallant it looked, upon the royal red cloth, that was rich to behold. But he didn't wear this girdle because of his wealth or its worth, not for pride in its pendants, though they were polished, not for the glittering gold that gleamed at its ends, but so that he might save himself when he was forced to suffer, forced to bear a blow without deflecting it with his own blade of war. Equipped, the knight so bold came out in front of the door, where to that high household he gave great thanks once more. Now Gringlet once groomed that great and high horse who had been living to his liking and was loyally tended. That gallant horse of good health was eager to gallop. His master came to him and looked over his armor and said, "Now solemnly I swear on my virtue, there are servants in this castle who have done honorably well. For their lord leads them, may his life be joyful. For their beloved lady, may their life be delightful. If they out of charity cherish a guest this way, upholding their house in honor. May he that upholds heaven on high reward them, and all of you too. And if I were to live this life a little longer upon earth, I would give you some gifts gladly, were I able. Then he steps in the stirrup and strides on his horse. A servant gave him his shield, and on his shoulder he slung it. He goaded on Gringolet with his gilded heels, and plunged forth on the pavement, and pranced no more, stood there. His squire was ready to ride, his helmet the squire would bear. Christ keep this castle, he cried, and wished it fortune fair. The drawbridge was brought down, and the broad gates then unbarred, and swung back upon both hinges. The brave man blessed himself, and crossing the bridge boards, told the guard, who was kneeling to the knight, to rise up. He said, "Good day, Sir Gawain, and God save you." Then he went on his way with the one man only to guide him as he goes to that grievous place where he is due to endure the deadly blow. They go by banks and by hills where branches are bare. They climb along cliffs where clings the cold, and heavens are lifted high, but under them evilly mist hangs moist on the land, melts off the mountains. Every hill has a hat and wears a huge robe of mist. Brooks babble and gurgle on hillsides all around, bubbling brightly on their banks as they bustle downwards. The way they must take through the woods is very wild, until soon the hour comes when the sun rises that day. High on a hill they stop, white snow beside them lay. His squire, now at the top, requested that they stay. "Up to now I have taken so far, sir, and now you are near to the noted place that you have inquired and questioned about so curiously. But I will tell you the truth, since I know you well now, and you are lord in this life that I love greatly. If you follow my advice, things will go better for you. The place that you plan to go is perilous to men. The worst warrior in the world dwells in that wasteland, for he is strong and stern, and delights in striking, and he is mightier than any man upon the earth. And his body is bigger than the 4 best men that are in Arthur's court, in Hector's or others. All who go to the Green Chapel will face his challenge. No one passes by that place who's so powerful in combat that he doesn't hack them to death with the force of his hand. For he is a monstrous man and knows nothing of mercy. For be it a fool or a chaplain that rides by the chapel, a monk or a priest going to mass, or any other man, he will be slain as soon as he goes there alive. And so I say to you, as sure as you sit in your saddle, if you go there, you'll be killed if that creature has his way. Trust me, it's true. Although you may have 20 lives, don't yield. He's lived there now so long and beat men off the field. Against his swing so strong, yourself cannot shield. And so, good Sir Gawain, now go another way, and leave the man alone. For the love of God, sir, come to some other country, and there may Christ keep you. And I shall hasten home again, and on my honor I promise that I swear by God and all his gracious saints, so help me God and his holy relics, and plenty of other oaths, that I will keep your secret safe, and say not a word that ever you decided to flee from any enemy that I knew of. Great thanks, said Gawain, and regretfully answered, Man, I wish you well, who wishes me well. I am certain you would keep my secret safe, but no matter how carefully you hid it, if I leave here fleeing because I feel fear, in the fashion you speak of, I would be a coward, and I could not be excused. Nay, I'll go to the chapel and take what other chances I have, and have such words with that wild man as my wish is to say, come fair or come foul, as fate will give me there. Here may be a fearsome knave, and an axe his hand may bear, but the Lord can always save the servants in his care. By Mary, said the other man, now you make it so clear that you wish to bring about your own doom, and would like to lose your life. I shall not delay you. Have your helmet on your head, your lance in your hand, and ride down by yonder rock where runs the same trail, till you are brought to the bottom of this baleful valley. A little to your left, look over the meadow, and you will see on the slope the chapel that you seek, and the great man who stays on those grim grounds. Now farewell in God's name, Gawain the noble. For all the gold in the world, I would not go with you, nor join you in friendship through this forest 1 foot further. He turns his horse bridle towards the back towards the woods. Hits his horse with his heels as hard as he can, gallops over grassy parts, and leaves the good man there alone. Gawain said, By God on high, I will never grieve nor groan. With God's will I comply. My deeds are not my own. Then he put spurs to Gringolet, and seeing the trail thrust in along a bank by the thicket's border, rode down the rough hill right to the valley, and then he gazed all around. He thought it was a grim place, and saw no sign of shelter on any side at all. Only high hillsides steeply rose on either side, and were notched with gnarly rocks and boulders. The sky itself appeared to be scraped by the peaks. Then he halted and held his horse for the time, and often scanned the view in order to find the chapel. On every side he saw nothing, which seemed strange to him, except for a mound that might be the end of a green pasture. A worn heap on a hill by the edge of the water, and beside it fell a creek that was flowing down. The water bubbled within as if it were boiling. He urged on his horse then, and came up to the mound. There lightly dismounted, and lashed his reins to a tree. With a rough branch he tightly secured them. Then he went to the mound and walked around it, debating in his mind what might it actually be. It had a hole at the end and at either side, and patches of green grass had grown all over it. And it was hollow within, nothing but an old cavern or a cave in an old rock. It was unclear just what was in his sight. "Is this the chapel green, O Lord?" said the gentle knight. "Here the devil may be seen saying prayers around midnight." "On my word," said Gawain, "what a wild place. This chapel looks evil. With herbs overgrown, it fits well, that fellow transformed into green to follow here his devotions in the devil's fashion. Now I feel it in my five senses, and the fiend himself has brought me here with his bargain to destroy me. This is a mound of misery, and the most accursed church that I have ever entered. Evil take it." With helmet on his head and his lance in his hand, he goes up to the roof of that rough dwelling. Then he heard from the high hill in a hard rock wall beyond the stream a startling noise. How it clattered in the cliff as if to cut it in two, as if someone was grinding a scythe upon a grindstone. How it hissed and rasped like racing mill water. How it rushed and it reverberated, rotten to hear. "Then, by God," said Gawain, "I guess this noise is meant in my honor, and properly to hail my arrival as a knight. God's will be done today, though words won't help my plight. My life I'll give away, no noise will give me fright." Then clearly the knight there called out loudly, "Who is the master of this place who will meet me? For now it's good Gawain that walks on these grounds. If anyone has anything to ask, let him hasten to me and make his needs known, either now or never." "Stay," said someone standing on the hill over his head, "and you shall get in good time what I vowed to give you." Still with that rasping racket he continued on a while, and went back to his grinding till he wished to descend. And then he climbed past a large rock, and came out of a hole, stepping out of a hidden nook with a horrible weapon, a Danish axe, newly sharpened and ready for swinging, with cruel cutting edge curved next to the handle. Grind on a whetstone, 4 feet in width. It was no less, and had light-colored lace on the handle, and the great man in green, still dressed as before, his locks of hair and long beard, his legs and his face, except on bare feet and on the ground he approached, steadied himself with the axe on the stones as he walked. When he walked to the water, he didn't go in, but over with his axe and haughtily strode, fierce and formidable on a field where far all around lay snow. Sir Gawain now met him there, but didn't bow down low. The other said, "Beware, I'll keep my word, you know." "Gawain," said the green man, "may God keep you. On my word, sir, I welcome you to my place, and you have shown yourself trustworthy by traveling here. And you haven't forgotten the agreement between us, that at this time, 12 months ago, you took your turn, and I should now, this new year, nimbly take mine. And we are in this valley now truly on our own. There is no one to bother. We can play as we like. Take the helmet off your head. I will give you pay. Spare me no more debate than I gave you before when you swiped off my head with only one swing. Nay, said Gawain. "By God, that gave me my soul. I shall not bother you not a bit with any bad-mouthing. Only restrain yourself to one swing, and I shall stand still and put up no defense while you do as you like right here." With a nod of his neck he bowed, laid bare flesh appear. For terror he was too proud, and showed no signs of fear. And the great man in green gladly prepared him, gathered up his grim tool that hit Gawain. With all the life in his limbs aloft, he heaved it, swung as mighty a swing as if he meant to destroy him. Had it come down to the dreadful spot he aimed it at, then under that strike the strongest man would have died. But beneath that swing's path Gawain swerved to one side, as down it came gliding to the green place to end him. Fearing the sharp iron, he pulled back a little with his shoulders. With a jolt, the other man jerked back the blade and called out to the knight, teasing him with taunts. "You're not Gawain," said the Green Knight, "who's so renowned, who never flinches from any foes on the field. And now you flee in fear before you even feel hurt. That knight has never known for such cowardice. I neither flinched nor backed away from your blow, sir, nor uttered any excuse in the court of King Arthur. My head flew to my feet, and yet I never fled. But you, before you'd had any hurt, you cower in your heart, and so I deserve to be named the nobler knight therefore." "I flinched once," Gawain then said, "and I'll do so no more. But unlike you, my head cannot be restored. But get busy, I beg you, sir, and bring this to an end. Deal me my destiny, and do it without delay. For I shall bear from you a swing, and won't move again till your axes hit me. Have here my word on it." "I'll take my swing then," the other said, heaved the axe high, and watched him as wrathfully as if he were wild with rage. He aimed for a mighty blow, but didn't touch Gawain, holding back hastily his hand before it could do any hurt. Gawain cautiously awaited the blow and didn't flinch, but stood as still as stone or the stump of the tree that has 100 tangled roots embedded in rocks. This time the man of green remarked merrily, "So now you have control under yourself. I must hit you. May the high order of knighthood that Arthur gave you save your throat from this swing, if it can." Angrily and with annoyance, Sir Gawain then answered, "Why? Hack away, you healthy man. You drag this out. It's your heart that I think is now cowering." "In faith," said the fellow, "you speak so fiercely. I will no longer linger by delaying this task right now." He took his striking stance and strained his lips and brow. Gawain knew he'd no chance, but did not flinch somehow. The Green Knight easily lifted his weighty weapon and swung with the bent blade towards the bare neck. Though he hacked with a hammer swing, he hurt him no more than to scratch him on one side and sever the skin. Into his neck's fat the axe flew and entered the flesh, so that shiny blood sprayed over his shoulders onto the ground. And when the good knight saw gore that gleamed on the snow. He sprang back and, with speedy feet, more than a spear's length, in haste, he grabbed his helmet and put it on his head, swung his shoulders around so he was behind his shield, brandished his brilliantly shining sword, and boldly he spoke. Never since he was born has his mother's baby boy was he ever on this earth half so happy a man. No more strikes, sir. You'll deal me no more. I've received from you a strike without struggle on this spot, and if you offer me more, I shall answer you promptly. And what I give shall be a similarly gruesome form of pay. One swing, and now I've paid. Our agreement clearly did say that in Arthur's hall we made, and so, good sir, away. The other backed away and rested on his axe, dropped the handle to the ground, leaning on its head, gazed at the good knight, as he did when he first got there. Seeing him standing so strong, so stern and fearless, armed and unafraid, this pleased the Green Knight's heart. Then merrily he spoke with a mighty voice, and loudly it rang. He said to the Lord, Fearless knight, there is no need to be so fierce. No man here has treated you without manners, nor given you anything not granted by agreement at court. I vowed to give you a hack, and you have had it, so be content. I relieve you of all remaining rights I might claim. If I had been rougher, it might have been a hit. I could have handled you more harshly and harmed you. My first swing was just playing around to make you afraid, and I swung without hitting. My reason for this fake swing was the agreement we affirmed on the first evening, and you fairly and unfailingly in faith kept with me. All that you gained, you gave me, as a good man would. The second swing I gave you, man, for the mornings when my beautiful wife kissed, and the kisses you gave me. For the two swings, I only swung harmlessly into the air right here. A true man must be true. There's no fear in it. That third day I know you haven't failed, so my axe bit. For that woven girdle that you wear is my very own. My own wife awarded it to you, I know well indeed. Now I am aware of your kisses and your courteous ways, and of my wife's flirting with you. I planned that myself. I sent her to test you, and you seemed to me truly the fair knight, most faultless, that ever set foot on earth. As a pearl is more highly prized than a snow pea, and so Gawain in good faith higher than other gallant knights. But in this you lacked, sir, a little, and of loyalty came up short. But that was not because of your wickedness of the flirting, because you loved your own life. Thus I blame you less. The other stern knight in thought stood a long while, in such grief and disgust that he had aching in his heart. All the blood from his chest mingled with the color of his cheeks, and he shrank into himself with shame at the speech. The first words that he then found to say were, Damn you, desire, and cowardice too. In you is vileness and vice that destroys virtue. He then took the treacherous thing, and untying the knot, fiercely flung the belt at the feet of the knight. Look at the corrupter. Let it have a foul fate. Worrying about the hit I would take, cowardice led me to consent to desire, forsaking my true nature, which is generous and trustworthy, and is fitting to knights. Now I am a fraud at fault, I who had always been afraid of treachery and violating virtue, and now these faults I bear. I confess, sir, to you, my fault is clear right there. I apologize too, and now I will beware. And the other man laughed and wildly answered, Any harm to me is healed beyond doubt. You have confessed so cleanly and acknowledged your errors, and have been plainly punished from the brush of my blade. So I believe you are purged of that debt, made as pure and clean as if you had done no evil since the day you were born. And I give you back, sir, the girdle with the gold at its hems, for it is green like my gear. So, Sir Gawain, you may think about this day when you walk in procession among princes of high praise. It will be a plain reminder of this exchange and the green chapel between chivalrous knights. And now you shall in this new year come to my castle and revel in the rest of this festive season. Oh, it will be good. The Lord said you should stay now that you've understood my wife won't make you her prey. She will behave as she should. Nay, the knight said, seized his helmet and took it off, thanking the mighty man. I have lingered too long. May your life now be blessed. And he promptly repay you who places all honors. Give my regards to her grace, your good wife, both to her and to the other, to my honored ladies, who subtly beguiled their servant with their designs. But it's no marvel if a man is made a mad fool by the workings of a woman and brought to ruin. For so was Adam fooled by a woman on earth, and Solomon by several, and Samson, moreover, was doomed by Delilah, and afterwards David was blinded by Bathsheba, and he bitterly suffered. Now so troubling were these women's tricks. It'd be a triumph to love them well, and believe them not, if only a man could, since these were in their time among the most blessed and eminent among all other men under heaven, yet were tricked too. Each one was once betrayed by a woman that he knew, and so a fool I've made. I've some excuse for you. But for your girdle, said Gawain, may God repay you, that I will accept with good will, but not for the gold so gleefully bordering it, not for the silk, not the hanging pendants, nor for wealth, nor for its fine workmanship. But as a token of my failed test, I shall turn to it often when I ride. Though others renown me, I'll regretfully recall the failure and the frailty of flesh, which is so perverse, so tender, so ready to be tainted by impurities. Thus, when pride pricks my heart because of my fighting prowess, one look, this Lovelace shall lower it. But one thing I shall ask of you, if you don't mind. Since you are the lord of yonder land, where I lived for a while in your house and in your honor, may he reward you who holds up the heavens and sits high above us. What is your true name? I shall ask nothing further. That I will truly tell you, then responded the other. Bertilac de Hout Desert. Hereabouts I am called, and was transformed into the color and size you see by the might of Morgan the Fairy, who in my manor lives and has studied cunning books and supernatural crafts. She has mastered many of the magic arts of Merlin, for long ago she fell deeply in love with that accomplished cleric, and as at Camelot the story is held in fame, and Morgan the goddess is therefore now her name. No power can man possess too high for her to tame. She made me go in this disguise to your good court to put its pride to the test, seeing if the reports were true that repeat the great renown of the Round Table. She put this magic upon me, to deprive you of your wits, hoping to hurt Guinevere, and that she might die from horror aghast at the gore that gruesomely spoke from with its head in its hand in front of the high table. It is she who lives at my home, that ancient lady. She is indeed your own aunt, Arthur's half-sister, daughter of the Duchess of Tintagel, and brave Sir Uther, who afterwards had Arthur, the current king. Therefore, I urge you sincerely, sir, return to your aunt. In my hall make merry. You love my household, and I wish you well, upon my word, Sir Knight, among any that live under God, for your great loyalty. But he denied him with a nay. By no means I will stay. Then hug and kiss and commend each other to the care of the Prince of Paradise, and they part on that cold grass. Off to the court of the king, Gawain's horse gallops fast. The green knight's glittering, continuing as in the past. Gawain rides through the wilderness of the world on Grindelwald. By the grace of God, he survived, often staying in a house, often lying out in the open, often vanquishing an enemy in the adventures he met, which I do not intend to tell the tale of this time. The hurt in his neck had now healed, and he wore the bright-colored girdle around himself across the chest like a belt bound around his side. Under his left arm, with a knot, it was tied to remind him of the taint of his failure that was found out. And so, at last, he came to the court again safely. Joy was awakened when the lords became aware that good Gawain had returned. What glad news, they thought. The king kissed the knight, and the queen also kissed him. And then, taking turns, many true knights there greeted him. They inquired about his quest, and he recounted all the marvels, describing all the hardships and hospitality he had met, what happened at the chapel, the cheerful festivities, the love of the lady, and last of all, the girdle. The notch in his naked neck, he showed them, and told how his dishonesty to the knight whose hand did it was to blame. He told the truth in torment. His cheeks revealed blood's flame. In agony that moment, he showed it to his shame. Look, Lord, he said at last, with the girdle in hand, this is the scarf. Because of it, a scar is seen on my neck. This is the grief and disgrace I have gotten for myself, from the desire and cowardice that overcame me there. This is the token of my violating virtue for all to view, and I must wear it while I remain in this world. For a man may cover his blemish, but he cannot banish it. For once it is there, it can never be removed. The king comforted the knight, and the court also laughed loudly to cheer him up, and made this law in merriment. Whichever lords and ladies belong to the table, and every knight in its brotherhood, must wear a sash, a band of bright green across the chest. And because of love of that night, it was part of official attire, for that was regarded as a distinction of the Round Table, and afterwards it was an honor to have it, as it is written in the best of the tales of chivalry. This marvel happened in the days of Arthur, as the book of Brutus bears with it. Since Felix Brutus, the bold knight, first came to Britain after the siege that the assault had seized at Troy, I trust. The marvels such as this took place here in life's dust. Now God's crown brings us bliss, though bearing it what he must. Amen. Shame on him who thinks evil of it. Thank you all for watching. Tune in tomorrow, where I will be reading Beowulf.